We're back, baby. It's the Charity Stripe. Pitch your free throws because they are free. Joshua Fisher, DJ, Nikki Snacks, Carter, Alex Tossman, The Rock, Tassopoulos. We're out of studio for a little bit. So back to the basics. I kind of missed my little background of like random goose posters behind me. Nick, you're in San Diego. Alex, you're at home. It's good to be back on the yard of stream. I did a little test for my headphones to see if they were working. I don't know if you guys have ever done that, but the music they play is pretty hilarious for those who use StreamYard, not a sponsor. Okay, NFL Draft was this weekend. Before we get into other teams, maybe go down the line, how do you guys feel your teams fared?
Why don't you go first, Christian Gonzalez?
Okay, I will lead us off then in that case. First round was awesome. I feel as if that was our guy from the jump, or one of the guys we loved, because a lot of us anticipated Christian Gonzalez to go in the top 10. So when he started dropping at 14, it was interesting to see Bill take the risk, move back to 17, with the anticipation that he'd be there. I don't know if he knew the Commanders loved Emmanuel Forbes. I don't know if we didn't know how much people loved Emmanuel Forbes, but running the risk that no one would take a corner. Obviously, the Steelers jumping up to jump the Jets to get Broderick Jones and secure, the left tackle position there. Jets going Will McDonald, who a lot of people ragged on, but I feel like the Iowa State players don't always get the fair shake. And then Emmanuel Forbes going 16, and then Christian Gonzalez again. We said it before the show or during the draft, I guess. Someone always falls to 17, like a good defensive back falls to 17. And Nick and I made the joke of Derwin James. And then here we are with Christian Gonzalez. So Bill, long, aggressive, athletic corner, and Bill's system is going to work wonders. Keon White, good, not great. But again, it's one of those, he's not going to be an every down player for us because we rotate a lot of the guys on the defensive line. Bill's all about building the depth in the defensive line. So I'm cool with that. And then from there, look, it's a crapshoot with a lot of the guys he drafts. He took the linebacker safety from Sacramento State, who many people, including me, have never seen on tape, admittedly. But from what I've read and now looked at, he's very versatile. He can play linebacker, safety, and he likes the Kyle Duggar types, Jabril Peppers types of players. So I thought that was nice. Then he gets the guard from UCLA, which was a really strong pick. He fell. A couple of the offensive linemen fell. Both the Ohio State center and Ohio State tackle fell into the laps of the Cleveland Browns. So offensive line, again, some guys you think will go in the third round, go in the sixth. I thought that was a good pick at guard. The kicker, kind of wild. Punter, kind of wild, but that's par for the course for Bill Belichick. And Toss, you texted in the group that the Kayshon Boutte pick had been the best pick in the entire draft. And there was a time where we thought this guy could, go in the first or second round. And now he's going to be a New England Patriot in the sixth round. So,
yeah, I mean, as far as talent goes, he's at times in mocks, he was a first round draft pick, right?
Yeah. So, and I really wanted a receiver. We were sitting there at 17. I was into the Jackson Smith and Jigba idea. We were sitting there in the second round, and I really wanted Jalen Hyatt, who ended up going to the Giants, or Cedric Tillman. But I can't complain with Kayshon, and I know I'm going to have to talk to our.
I guarantee he will have a better career than N'Keal Harry. It's a guarantee. And that
I hope so.
And that guy was picked in what round?
Can't be.
That was 32nd overall pick. I would hope he had a better career than N'Keal Harry.
Not much he needs to do to have a better career, honestly.
Very true. Nicholas.
The Sacramento State guy you guys got, though, he's the Big Sky Player of the Year.
Yeah. He hold for dog. He's, again, a very versatile. I texted Joe DeLeon because he covers FCS. So I was like, what do you think about this guy? And he loved the pick. So I trust a guy who's knowledgeable in the draft like Joe and a guy who's knowledgeable in FCS. Talk to me about the Chargers, though.
Well, look, they got Quentin Johnston, a guy that we're familiar seeing when he played against our Texas Longhorns, biggest receiver in the draft. Joe DeLeon mentioned that he doesn't really play like a big receiver, but also at the same time, he was questioning, why we need another big receiver because we already have Mike Will. You've got Keenan Allen on the team. You got Josh Palmer. But I've been saying this time and time again that those guys might not have been on the team next year. Josh Palmer, I'm sure he will. But Keenan Allen and Mike Will, those guys have really big cap hits after this season. Their cap hit right now is already big enough. And to be able to afford both those guys and also try to pay Justin Herbert and potentially have to continue to pay Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa and Derwin James. You just don't have enough money. So it's a pick for safety and just to ensure yourself that Justin Herbert will always have weapons on his team. Look, Jackson Smith and Jigba got picked one pick before him, so nothing much you can do there. He probably would have been the pick if he fell one more, because he's the best receiver in the draft according to a lot of people. But I'm fairly certain we got a good guy here. Thing that I think was pretty funny is that we were just going after TCU guys. Darius Davis, another TCU wide receiver, not big at all, 5'9", but ran, I think, like a 4.34 in the draft. So looking to get some really fast receivers is something that, it's a model that the Chiefs have had for a long time with Tyreek Hill and now the Dolphins. I think a lot of teams are trying to emulate, trying to do that with their gadget receivers, right? You even see the Lions go after, Jahmyr Gibbs, who is a speedy back, who I think honestly might end up playing a receiver role, kind of like what Deebo Samuel does. He goes to the backfield, he goes to the slot. But the Chargers, they're just looking for weapons to fill around Justin Herbert. So it was very apparent. And then they also take Max Duggan out of TCU, which, congratulations to him for making the NFL, but you're going to be sitting behind Justin Herbert for quite a while. And, maybe you get a shot somewhere else, but it's cool to see him in LA. I like their pick with the USC guy, Tului Tuipulotu, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
The edge rusher from USC, keeping him, home. I think he led the team in sacks. I think he might even led the Pac-12 in sacks. I'll have to check that again, but he's a guy that on a not so good defense at USC still was able to shine. One of the highlights there for them. So cool to see that. And then they went on and got a linebacker from Washington State. It's always good to beef up the linebacking core. You got another guard from Clemson and Jordan McFadden. And look, when you get a guard that late, I mean, he's probably going to end up sitting. But Chargers have always had a lot of injuries on their own line, so it's not bad to have some depth there. And then they rounded out with a tackle from Boise State, so defensive tackle. So I think I like the draft. I think I saw Pro Football Focus rating A-. I'd probably put it more in like the B range, B+, but we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, I do think on yours, Henley, the linebacker from Washington State, it's a linebacker that people thought could go in the second round, and was, the third linebacker on a lot of boards. So I thought that was a nice pick. The edge from USC, again, had a really strong season, and you're right, which was a very weak, defense. It's really about how you implement all these guys. Again, like Butte, like the guard from Clemson, McFadden, they're late round picks, but these guys played at the highest level on very competitive teams. And he's the guard at Clemson. So maybe he doesn't work his way in, but you always want these rotational pieces. These large majority of the NFL, I think we saw the graphic, is 4th through 7th round picks. So these guys are going to have to play in some capacity. So I actually really like the Chargers draft a lot. Toss.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about that is if they really wanted Jackson Smith and Jigba, they would have moved up for him, or they at least would have tried to. And maybe no one answered their call, right? And maybe they tried to, and it just didn't work out. But I think more likely is that they were okay with Quentin Johnston for a multitude of reasons, a lot of them which you already named, Nick, and what we saw this past year in college football. So I think the margins between Quentin Johnston, JSN, and then who was the receiver that went to the Ravens? I'm forgetting his name. The Boston
Flowers.
Zay Flowers.
Yeah.
I think it was razor thin margin between those three guys.
Sure.
I don't think really Jackson Smith had kind of superseded them in a prospect way that we're going to see next year with Marvin Harrison Jr. The Cowboys draft, I would say I probably feel the same way about Nick in regards to if you had to give a grade, which grades are stupid because, like you just mentioned, Josh, 4 through 7, those are the rounds where a lot of guys actually turn into NFL players. So it's hard to really say and give a grade when you really have no idea how these guys are going to pan out. But as far as what we went and got, I think we addressed a lot of needs. Mozzie Smith, defensive tackle out of Michigan. We kind of did the same thing that y'all did with TCU players. Our first 2 guys were from Michigan. Schoonmaker too, the tight end. So obviously we lost Dalton Schultz. So addressing that need I thought was was good, and Overshawn incredibly fun and exciting to have a Longhorn on our squad. I mean, we passed up, a guy like Darnell Washington. We could have double dipped on the tight ends, but it was interesting to see him fall to the third round. And obviously, I think a lot of that has to do with, injury projection and how he bounces back from that. But I actually liked our draft. I thought we did pretty well, and then I really, really liked our last 2 picks, rounding out our selections with Deuce Vaughn and Jalen Brooks, who I think are 2 weapons that Dak Prescott can utilize. Deuce Vaughn was, I know he's undersized, but as far as gadget backs go, like, he's a tremendous talent, and his dad is on the team, and just getting the content of his dad calling him and then being so emotional in the locker room was worth it for me.
I was going to say, really great video of him asking his son, and you want to come to work with me next week, as he's crying.
Epic.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah. I mean, we saw Deuce Vaughn. For me, it's like, look, we're privy because we watch our team so closely because we cover Texas, right? So we're privy to some of these guys, like, with a little bit of an eye test. We see these guys on TV more often than not, especially the Big 12 guys. And is Deuce Vaughn undersized? Yes. Is he a gamer though? And is he going to carve out, as long as he's healthy, a role in the NFL? For sure. And they might bring Zeke back. We read, I don't know, but you have Pollard and you have Deuce Vaughn now. And with Pollard's speed and his ability, I think, to be a true running back 1, I think Deuce Vaughn is a guy that can spell him quite nicely. And I actually thought that was a really good pick by Dallas. Just some other drafts, maybe a couple things I like. I thought the Steelers did well. You brought up Darnell Washington. I thought, getting him in the 3rd round. I know they have Patty Freiermuth, but Darnell Washington, I think, again, is a big boom or bust pick. And if he booms, he's going to be a fantastic tight end, a big red zone target, a guy who can block. Broderick Jones was nice that went up and got their tackle. Obviously, another great story is Joey Porter Jr. His dad played for the Steelers. Now he's cool. That was awesome. And again, he's a big, long, physical corner, a guy that probably could have gone in the 1st round. And I think that's a good swap for Chase Claypool, a shot at him. I really like Herbig was the guy we covered on our show because his brother and him were on, I believe, in Badgers. I thought that was nice. And by and large, I don't think a lot of teams did badly. You know what I'm saying? I liked, even like the people were questioning what the Lions were doing. I thought they did quite nicely, especially now that we've seen the dust settle with DeAndre Swift going to the Philadelphia Bulldogs.
I mean, is it more that they were drafting 3 running backs, or is it more that they were drafting a running back? Okay, if you want to call him an offensive weapon, sure, but at 12. I mean, this guy was not the same prospect as Bijan Robinson. So I also wonder, like, was anyone else going to take him in the next 5 to 7 picks? Like, did they really have to take him at 12?
I don't know. I want to say no, because, like, look, we're saying, like, that's kind of crazy. Like, they took a guy, we thought would go at the back end of the 1st round at 12. This is also a team that moved up all the way to take a receiver with a torn ACL at 12 last year, who's now suspended for another 6 games. But back to my play devil's advocate to it, the eye test. When we played Alabama, who tore us up the most? It was him.
Yeah.
And he's a guy we saw throughout the year really do some serious damage. And if you're good enough to be the RB1 at Alabama, you're a pretty good running back in my eyes. And he is an offensive player, and he is a guy that's extremely exciting. He's a guy that's can really, be the opposite. I'm not saying he's Reggie Bush coming out of college, but he could be Reggie Bush in the NFL minus probably the return game stuff. Like a 600 guy.
I also like that he was at a team that Bama had kind of like a committee backfield. And normally, like, when they have guys, sometimes like Derrick Henry, Eddie Lacy, Mark Ingram, like back in the day, like those were just their guys that were just pounding the ball, 25, 30 times a game. And so not as much wear and tear on Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, they got him the ball a lot in the pass game, which was huge. But, had a decent amount of carries, but, he was split in the backfield a lot of the time. So it's nice that he doesn't have those mileage that a lot of running backs do coming out of college. I think their draft is pretty good. I mean, I think, Joe, our draft expert, said that the Jack Campbell pick was kind of a reach in the 1st round for them. At 18, the linebacker out of Iowa, Iowa. And then they, went and took another Iowa tight end. And, there were some tight ends on the board in Sam Laporta. But, as we know, Iowa is a hotbed for tight ends. The guys in the NFL right now aren't doing too bad. So, Hawkinson and Kittle. But yeah, we'll see what they do there. Pretty interesting, just building around that offense there, just continuing to build. And, they end up getting Hendon Hooker in the 3rd round. It's funny. People are saying that, Jared Goff started his career in 2016 and, we're here in 2023 and he's only 3 years older than Hendon Hooker. So
it's crazy, but it's a good place for Hooker to rehab. Guy that we met and we really liked. I think Laporta wasn't a sexy tight end pick, but you're right. The Iowa products, first of all, Iowa's wicked close to Detroit, so they're kind of right there. And the ability to send scouts there, obviously, they've taken 2 guys from that team. And Laporta was I felt pretty underrated. He had a lot of catches in college. He's kind of like a do-it-all tight end. Again, he's not like sexy as the sexy pick, like a Kelsey or a Gronk, but you never know how these tight ends could really end up because we've seen Noah Fant, be a first-round pick. We've seen Eric Ebron be a top 10 pick in the past, and those guys, haven't really panned out with some of these like later round tight ends have. But yeah, again, by and large, I was really the Titans. I thought, Toss, you thought that was a steal with Tajay Spears, what they did in the 3rd round, getting him at running back. Obviously, not taking Levis at 11, getting Skoronski, and then letting Levis fall, and then jumping up to the 2nd round and getting the guy, maybe a guy that they thought was the top quarterback in the draft. I thought that was a pretty strong move by them. The Seahawks, the Water Falcons. Stand corrected. They got a guy in Derek Hall in the 2nd round. Toss, you thought in our draft would go in the 1st round, and then they get the best corner and the best receiver. Yeah, best corner and best receiver. The Charbonnet pick was interesting, but yeah.
Was there you said that you think the Titans might have had Levis number 1 on their board from a QB standpoint. Is that something that was floated out in the ether?
It was floated out in the ether that they wanted to move up to potentially get him. You're
saying pre-draft, like pre-draft. Not real, no, like actual communication coming from the Titans.
Correct, because let me a point that
there's no way he was number 1 on their board as far as quarterbacks go.
At 11, I'm sure. We're towards the top of their board. I mean, number 1, I would have met
who they could have picked. Okay.
Yes,
gotcha.
And I think a valuable lesson that we all learned this weekend: these teams know a lot more than the analysts and we do. Mel Kiper could be sued for defamation because he shot Will Levis all the way to the top, and that poor kid didn't go until pick 34.
Yeah, they were saying something like there was like a 0.1% chance that he would not get taken in the 1st round. He didn't, and like how I'm thinking about it, it's like, by what metric are we going off this 0.1% chance? Like, there's 31 teams drafting. He's got a 1 in 31 chance, to get drafted. And obviously you got to look at the teams that have the quarterback needs, but there were other teams that could have drafted a quarterback. It could have been the Commanders, could have been the Titans, as we said in the 1st round. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, he's an NFL player. He's for early 2nd round pick, might as well be a 1st round pick. He's still going to get paid. He's going to end up getting some snaps there. Interesting to see what they're going to end up doing with Malik Willis, who they took last year. Maybe they ship him off, somewhere like, I don't know, Washington, Arizona. Who knows? We'll see what happens. I think someone even mentioned that Jake Elbogan mentioned that he'd want to see him on the Rams, who just took Stetson Bennett. Probably not the best place for Stetson to land, with all of his off the field issues, but maybe, McVay can talk some sense in him and straighten him out a little bit. But going back to like some teams I like, I mean, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the Eagles and what they did, building the completely 2022, 2021 Georgia defense, taking Jordan Davis last season, now going out and getting Jalen Carter, a guy that everyone had number 1, before he had the off the field issues, and they get him at pick number 9. They trade up with the Bears, do a swap there, and then they get Nolan Smith at the back end of the 1st round, a guy that a lot of people had maybe going in the top 15. And then later in the draft in the 4th round, getting Keely Ringo, Joe DeLeon's best friend. So, I think that this is an awesome opportunity for them to build this defense greater than it was last year. I mean, it's always great when you have guys in the locker room that gravitate towards each other, that build chemistry. I mean, camaraderie is really big, especially in a team sport like football. So, these guys have won at the biggest level in college football, and the guys that were on the team last year for the Eagles got there and were this close. So, maybe it's just a couple extra guys that you needed to add to the roster to get you over the hump.
And even if they and even if they don't play this year, they're setting themselves up to be a franchise going forward and to compete year after year after year because they just signed Hurts to this big contract. So we'd expect, and they have AJ Brown, young receiver.
Yep.
We'd expect them to be around for a good long while. Now they go get their young running back. They have DeAndre Swift, who they also traded for, another Georgia boy,
And a Kobe Dean too.
and to Kobe Dean, who apparently was like instrumental in communicating with the organization to say like, no, these are the guys, like go get them for sure. I don't think anyone had any questions about Nolan Smith. I mean, that guy's just stand up. But as far as Jalen Carter, I think that at least what I read was that Dean was a guy that really vouched for him and, really, really believed that he could buy into what they have in that locker room. And it's pretty easy to buy in when the possibility of a Super Bowl is imminent.
Yep. And they go get our Texas guy, Ojimo, as well. And I just want to say really quickly before you go, Josh, that like I love all the places that our Texas guys ended up going. I think they're great fits for everybody. Obviously, Bijan goes at number 8 overall to, the Falcons. Shout out to his family. Arthur Smith taking him. We knew our boss knew he wouldn't tell us, but kept a secret. But I mean, being the guy in Atlanta, I think that'd be awesome for him to go out and just be a star running back. And they haven't really had anything semblance of a good run game in a while. They had Devontae Freeman in and out, back in the day that Michael Turner had work done, but he's got a chance to be like the greatest Falcons running back of all time. And I know it's early to say, but we're sitting here saying that this guy could be, the best running back prospect that we've seen since, LaDainian Tomlinson, Adrian Peterson. Rojo obviously goes to the Bears. Love that. He's split in the backfield with Deontay Foreman. He might end up getting the most carries on that team. Toss, your boy's got, our cowboy, Damari Novershawn, loves rocking the cowboy hat. Couldn't think of a better fit for him. I mean, he's pumped to stay in Texas. Ojimo, as we mentioned, goes to the Eagles. Keandre Corbin goes to Super Bowl champ Chiefs. I mean, like these guys are landing in great places. I was really happy for all of them.
Yeah, the Bijan probably is the worst case scenario to everybody, but he's so talented. You have to have absolute faith in him. And if there's anything that he's been accustomed to, it's rocky quarterback play. Fortunately, unfortunately, my favorite probably was Roschon going to be with Deontay Foreman in the Bears. And I thought it was such a nice pick for the Bears because I read a lot of I read a lot of places that people thought Roschon, had he not been behind Bijan, and we said this time and time again, he would have been an RB1 at a lot of universities, probably 95% of the universities in the FBS. And he's a big physical running back who could be really great for the RPO for Justin Fields, could help block for Justin Fields. And I think that was a really nice pick. They have 2 bruisers in him and Foreman, and their rushing attack, which was number one last year in the NFL, could be back with a lot of field. They added, obviously DJ Moore to help stretch the fields. And I think this could be, and I think it could be and I like their draft a lot too, the Bears and what they did. So I think it could be they're going
to be fun. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. And, they've not been great, but Justin Fields really turned it on the second half last year with his legs. And, I think people were really surprised, and when I got Chase Claypool, I mean, and it's not the sexiest, but he's a good blocker, and he's fast and he's physical. So, we'll see what happens. And then, I got a shout out to the 2 undrafted free agents, Anthony Cook going to the Chiefs and Deshaun Jameson, going to the Niners. I think those are also great fits. I mean, the Niners love their gadget guys, and Jameson's, a great return man for us. And, they're a team that's always, hurting in the defensive backfield, guys going down. So he might get a call up at some point where he can, be the starter there.
Yeah. I think everybody ended up in a really good position. Back to Dio for a second there. Like, think about who's in that room with him. Think about who he's learning from. He gets to
Parsons.
Yeah, Parsons and Tank Lawrence, right? Tank Lawrence has been there and he's done that for a long, long time. He's played at a really high level for a long, long time. And he gets to grow with Mozzie Smith, which I think is going to be exciting for him. You mentioned Van Der Esch as well. The Coburn pick, like, I really think we never tapped into his potential. I think he's going to be a beast in the NFL. He's huge.
I agree.
I like that might be a standout pick in this draft, and of course he ends
such
up
a typical
in Kansas City.
Such a typical Kansas City D lineman.
It's going to feel a little like reminiscent of a UT basketball player once they get to the bigs, and then Jared Allen gets an all-star, right? And I think that's a home run pick to me in the making, because I felt that every single Saturday. I was like, where is this guy? Why is he not more involved? And I think that's just kind of what happens to us as Texas fans. Sometimes we watch on Saturday and then those guys get to Sunday and they crush it, which is, we're always excited about. But yeah, I think it was a really fun draft. And I think every year is always fun, right? Because these guys are so talented. Like guys hitting the third and fourth round, and it's nothing crazy. I will say, like, I thought it was pretty interesting. Josh, you mentioned it briefly when you were talking about the Pats pick. You picked a kicker in round 4. You picked a punter in round 6. Like Jake Moody got picked in the 3rd round. I think he was the first kicker off the board out of Michigan. They do not care anymore. Front offices don't care. If they think a guy can be a lock to be a starter on special teams, they'll go after him with a higher pick.
Yeah, guys will take the best player, and you saw it. I felt, and going back to round 1, just using this as an example, guys will take I think the Bengals did this a lot. Guys will take the best player available on their board. Like we all thought that the Bengals would take a tight end. I think they probably had Dalton Kincaid at number 1, like a lot of teams did. Clearly, Michael Mayer was a little overvalued by a lot of teams, and they went with Myles Murphy. Like they have Hubbard, they have Hendrickson, like they have their edge guys already, but they went with they felt the best player available. They did it again with DJ Turner. I think a lot of teams, like you're saying, like special team. How often have we seen teams not win necessarily, but lose because of poor special teams?
All the time.
And Bill, like, yeah, it's crazy. He took a punter in round 6 and a kicker around 4. A kicker who wasn't even that automatic, but he felt these guys could really help contribute and lock in a position. Like the Patriots rarely have special teams issues. And that's why they've been so good for all these years.
Yeah. I still think like round 3 is a little early for a guy, but
hey, it ain't round 1.
As far as the 49ers go,
Jankowski.
Yeah, it's true. I think just to finalize like my kind of take on the Gibbs versus Bijan situation. Bijan is the type of guy where you're picking him and he realistically could be a top 8 rusher in the NFL this year. Year 1. I mean,
maybe top 5.
Right. Joe D was saying he could get 1,500 yards on the ground, which would be incredible. They're going to run him for sure.
Yeah.
But a guy like Gibbs is not going to do that. And so I think, like, to me, they're only 4 picks away from each other. And that is why I'm a little hesitant about the Lions doing that. But I think I actually do like them moving off of Swift just because that guy cannot stay on the field.
Yeah.
He's so dynamic and he's so talented. And of course, like, I think the fit with the Eagles is really, really scary. But now they have Penny and Swift, both guys who have not been able to stay healthy, and those are their 1 and 2 backs. I think they have a lot of sustainability with their 3rd and 4th guys with Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell, who I think can be trusted and have risen to the moment.
Their quarterback who could run too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not as much of a need to get a home run threat running back when you got a quarterback like that.
Yeah, it's true.
I want to say though, I like the Gibbs pick. I know it seems aggressive at 12, but
no, it's not that I don't like the player. I love the player actually, and I think he's an incredible pairing with David Montgomery. It's different than picking Bijan at 8. It is.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about these quarterbacks really quickly. Who's gonna have the best career? What's the best fit?
I thought the fit with Bryce Young with the Panthers, which we kind of knew was going to happen. I like it. They got Mingo in the 2nd round out of Ole Miss. It's going to take a little bit of time to rebuild there on that offense, but they've already gotten his tackle, Ike Ekwonu. Like they went and got him at the 6th overall pick last year. So they're going to be in a position where they have to probably go get maybe if Mingo's a wide receiver 1, great. They brought in Thielen, who, he's probably a little bit of a shell of himself, but a guy who's been there before, a good guy to have in the locker room.
They also have a head coach who is a quarterback whisperer and has had a lot of success with quarterbacks.
Yep.
And I think that
Frank
bodes best for him over any other QB situation, to be honest.
I think so. Yeah, I would rank it. My favorite situation is his. Then my second favorite, probably
Richardson.
Probably Richardson. Yeah,
Richardson's my number 1.
I think. Look, he's going to be boomer bust.
They might rush it. They cannot rush it. That's the crucial element to this. And this is a Colts organization right now whose GM, I think, actually kind of has a little bit of a pressure cooker underneath him right now, and he might get enticed to rush it. And we love our Longhorn there, Sammy E, but he's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. And I don't know how long they're going to be able to watch that before they say, hey, maybe we just give this guy Anthony a shot. And I think they can't do it. They can't do it. Year one just can't happen.
They went and got Gardner Minshew,
Right.
who
Will
I think
be the starter. Yeah.
I actually think is a good look. They're not winning anything. They have to understand that. They took Josh Downs, who fell to the third round. I like that pick too. A good receiver. Their defense is going to hopefully take. I actually thought they took that edge who fell. They also are another team that let the board fall really nicely to them with that edge who blew out in the defensive lineman who people thought from Northwestern could go earlier. Julius Brents, who when we asked Quentin Johnston who his toughest cover was, he said it was him from Kansas State. I actually thought the Colts, which seems they're a good organization, drafted pretty well, and he's my number 2. But I'm with you, Toss. I don't want them to rush him. That'd be a mistake.
They're also in a weird kind of limbo where their team is not terrible. They're not. They have a decent roster. And I think this more so, functions to change like where their pick is going to be next season. But they might get enticed into being like, hey, can we win 7 games? Can we compete for a wild card spot in this division? I don't know. But they have a lot of good pieces on the defensive side. They obviously have a stud running back. Pittman had a really good year last year. Like this is not a joke of a team, and the Texans are. And so I think I'm almost confident in a team that knows exactly who they are and knows exactly what their capabilities are for a season, and they can just go out there and okay, we just know we got to do good work next year, at least for the Texans, right? And for the Colts, it's can we get tripped up because we don't know exactly what our team's supposed to be?
It's an attainable division to win. Yes, we saw the Jags, go and take that division last year, and Trevor Lawrence is taking massive steps up, but they haven't had back-to-back winning seasons in 20 plus years. It's been a long time since they've really been able to put together a great team. Maybe this is it, but with the Titans, we'll see what they're doing. They still haven't traded Derrick Henry. I don't know if he's gonna be on the roster next season. How long is Tannehill gonna be their guy? Don't rush it with the Colts, but like you said, they've got Jonathan Taylor, they've got Shaq Leonard on defense, they've got pretty decent receivers, nice O-line still, so if they really like him out of camp and he's athletic, and he can kind of do what Cam Newton did his rookie year, and, maybe even do what Jalen Hurts, has been doing, where his development is getting better and better each year. I mean, that's the same guy, Shane Steichen, who got Jalen Hurts to the place he was. So, if there's anyone that can tap into the potential, it's him. And then of course the Texans. I like what the Texans did in this draft. Back-to-back picks, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, another guy that people had going number 1 overall. It's the DeMeco Ryans effect for you, right? I don't necessarily know if they're going to be able to do that if they don't have him as their coach, right? They're in a position right now where they said, DeMeco, anything you need, right, we're going to give to you. If you want to go out and get, your quarterback, we're going to go out and get your quarterback. You want to go out and get, your best defensive player, all right, we'll trade up and get the best defensive player for you. And, they're really going to put him in a place for success. And that's good because, look, we see guys go into organizations like the Texans or the Browns, where they've had just terrible season after terrible season. They just rotate coaches in and out, right? 1 year, 2 years, they bounce around like crazy. And I really think that they want to make this work with DeMeco Ryans. And they went out and got a couple of Alabama guys, and Will Anderson. And they also took, who else they took? Was it Battle, right?
I think so. So.
They took 2020, the linebacker.
Oh, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But he's good. He's good though. I liked and who they took? They took Tank Dell. You guys see that? Did I send you guys that DM?
Yeah, he
Hilarious.
DM'd the Texans Instagram as if the GM of the Texans is running Instagram.
What a legend! What a legendary tweet. The DM. Who they took that I really like? I like Xavier Hutchinson a lot. I don't know what his. It's a good flyer for me. He's another guy that really did damage against a good Texas defense last year. He was all over the field for Iowa State. We couldn't cover him, so I thought that was a nice pickup in the 6th. The Texans is weird. Their running back room is Dev Singletary, Dameon Pierce, It's a pretty good duo in my book.
Yeah.
They got Dalton Schultz, solid, reliable tight end. They spent, they have Tunsil. They got Juice Scruggs in the second round at center. They have Kenyon Green, who they took in the first last year at guard. Like, their offensive line is also pretty good. Robert Woods, best blocking wide receiver, in the game. And they went out and they got a couple good vets to add to their defense, who now has Derek Stingley Jr. and Will Anderson Jr. and Jalen Petrie, who was a pickoff machine last year. I still think they're going to suck, but I think they'll suck a little less. I don't think they're going to be the worst team in the NFL. I think that, to me, still is going to be the Cardinals, who will probably have the first pick next year and are going to be in a very precarious situation. Very, very interesting situation. But I like the direction that with D'Amico Ryans, the Texans are heading in. All that being said, I think one of the 5 guys who we've been covering should be the starting quarterback week 1. I think it's Bryce Young's the only guy that should be starting. I think that Davis Mills should be the starting quarterback for the Texans. I don't think you should rush Stroud. I think Gardner Minshew should be the number 1 guy for the Colts. I don't think you should rush Richardson. And I think Will Levis can be Ryan Tannehill. So let him learn from him and let him just sit back, relax, and watch. It is a winnable division, but I think the Jags are legit. I think the Jags are pretty complete. And I think the Titans and the Colts are just very hit or miss. They could be good. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if the Colts were good and competitive. I wouldn't be shocked if the Titans were good and competitive. I also wouldn't be shocked if both those teams stunk. So it's going to be very interesting. Who are your 5 worst teams now? Who are the bottom 5?
Cardinals. I still think the Texans are probably bottom 5.
How much better are the
Rams?
Rams
maybe
going to be? That's what I was going to ask.
I mean, they didn't really do much in this draft. They didn't have a ton of draft capital.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really didn't. I mean, I'm interested to see. Like, the Commanders are still a big question mark to me. Still a big question mark. I would not be surprised if they were a bottom 5 team. Not at all.
Can I throw a team out there?
Yeah.
What about the Bucks? Is there a world where the Bucks kind of suck?
Yeah, I mean,
sucky for the Buckies.
sucky on my dicky dick.
No, I think that's absolutely a possibility. I also think that they still need to make a head coach change. And talking about special teams and how important that is, that in conjunction with head coaching in the NFL makes a big difference and can be 2 or 3 games, to be honest. I mean, look what it was for the Broncos last season. It can be more than that sometimes. And I think that they need a regime change.
Yeah.
And Brady didn't leave it in a great spot, unfortunately.
So Baker's going to be their starter, yeah? Is that just
or Kyle Trask?
True.
They're going to end up with Caleb Williams.
I do think, Josh, that I'm with you on Stroud. Not starting. He's going to start day 1. I really believe that, and I think part of the reason why they went and got Will Anderson and CJ Stroud is because I think it was a little bit of a 1 for me, 1 for you situation where ownership was like, no, we need a quarterback that's not Davis Mills because we want people to go to these games and still watch. And I think that D'Amico was like, well, let me get in the GM whose name is escaping me right now is like, well, let us go get our guy too. And we want Will Anderson Jr. I think they gave up too much for him, to be honest. And as good of a player as he is, like, no one is saying that he's Bosa coming into this draft. No one's saying that. No one's saying he's Myles Garrett. They love his work ethic. He's a beast, but he's also a guy that kind of got mitigated when he played the Texas Longhorns. And look, we're not a terrible college football team, but we were not an excellent college football team this past season either. And I know we liked Kelvin Banks on the outside and our offensive line, but it was a young offensive line. And we made life hell for Will Anderson in that game. So yeah. I just, all that to say, he's not quite the same as some of these top tier edge rushers out there. And they gave up a lot. They gave up a lot to go get him.
I will say that we probably played the best game against him. He had his worst game against us. And, you know, for us, like, we're sitting here as Texas fans and we're looking at our season as not a failure, but like not like the big success, you know, because we haven't been able to get to where we want to be. So I guess that's why we can kind of poo-poo him a little bit. But
I mean, he still had 10 sacks. Like he had a good year.
Yeah,
It's
did a
just
great season.
he's just not. I just don't think he's the same as like the top 4 pass rushers in the NFL. Like I just don't think he is. He's not. He's not Micah Parsons. Like he's not.
Or he's not Myles Garrett, honestly, either.
Right.
And Nick Caserio is the guy, he was with the Patriots and he's the GM for the Texans. And there was rumors he was going to leave after the draft. To be honest, I know he has all these off the field issues, and I know the Texans did not want to go in that direction after the whole Deshaun Watson situation. But the only defensive player I would have moved up for in this draft, just again based off what we saw in college, was Jalen Carter. And I think that Will Anderson could be a fine player, 8 or 9 sack type guy. But I don't know if he could be a 13, 14 sack type guy, 15 sack type guy. And when you make a move like that, and you're going to be a bad team next year, and you give up your first round pick next, they still have the Browns first
and third next year,
it's a steep jump,
and the 33rd pick too, which essentially is a borderline first rounder. Right, it's right at the beginning of the second round. Like they gave up a lot for him.
They gave a lot, but that yeah. And if I may go back to the Gibbs thing one more time, that was like one thing I did like about the Gibbs is taking into account that they went from 6 to 12, and they picked up a lot of picks to go. And that, yeah, I thought the Cardinals maneuvered for as bad as they are pretty nicely around the draft. Quickly though, basketball, hockey, you got to touch on a little bit. Real skinny on it. Steph Curry. Not game of his life, but like one of his best playoff games we've ever seen.
I saw some guy on Twitter being like, yeah, no one's going to talk about how he stat padded to break this record. And I was like, you, sir, did not watch the game. Let me tell you. You just didn't watch the game.
They needed him. He did everything.
He was unbelievable. Bless you.
Bless you. He did. Springtime, baby. He did.
Here.
Yeah, for real. The Steph 50 outside of Kevon Looney, who I was talking about with the air conditioning guys who just came into my unit. Looney was a monster on the boards as he was all series, but Steph Curry was unbelievable. I mean, he was probably the second biggest story of the weekend, which is crazy.
What was
first? I don't know hockey, bro. We don't know hockey.
No, I mean, like we knew that the Bruins had the most like epic season in the regular season of all time.
Yeah.
And they just get bounced in the first round by a lower seed. And that
not only did they get bounced, they were up 3-1.
Yeah.
They were up 3-1.
Choked.
And they absolutely choked. And
they
then
were up 3-2.
No. I'm saying in the series they were up 3-1.
Yes, I know. And then I'm saying in the game they were up 3-2 with a minute left.
And they let up a goal on their own home ice with 56 seconds left.
Yeah.
It is, I will say about that game, though, Keith the Chuck's son was on the Panthers, which is awesome. And then Todd Bertuzzi's son is on the Bruins. So there's like these guys that were really good in the early 2000s when we were just becoming people with ideas and allegiances to certain sports teams. Like these guys have sons and they're like good at hockey and they're here and they're like part of the next generation of hockey, which is really cool.
Yeah, Kachuk is a beast on the Panthers. Johnny Laz, who does the Rangers show and our new Pass Shoot Score show,
yeah,
he put out a tweet. This is the perfect example of what Giannis' press conference is about. Is the Bruins season a failure?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go.
There are no failures.
Yeah.
No.
It's a failure, bro. You don't set. Imagine if the New England Patriots, after going 16-0, lost in the divisional round.
I think the expectation for in any sport, any major sport, NHL, NBA, MLB, NFL, if you are the best team in your conference by a large margin, or even not by a large margin, the expectation is that you get to your conference championship. That is always the expectation to me personally. And if you come short of it, then the season. You didn't do what you were supposed to. If you get to the conference championship and you lose, okay, because at that point the teams are so good that like I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I think that like to say to any team like the Bucks or the Bruins, hey, you have to get to the Stanley Cup, hey, you have to get to the NBA Finals, like that's a little far-fetched. But conference championship or bust, in my opinion, for a team that's number one. in their conference.
I mean, could you imagine like if like the 73 win Warriors, this is what it's like, to be honest, lost in the first round?
I mean, they still didn't win at all. So does it
No,
matter?
they didn't. They didn't win it all, but they got there. They went to 7 games and got there. Like Gonzaga, for what it's worth, when they had that undefeated season 2 years ago, they at least got to the finals of March Madness.
Patriots.
At least got there. Like bounced in the first round, losing on home ice, you're up in the game, you're up in the series is one of the biggest botch jobs I think I've ever seen in sports.
Yeah. Biblical collapse.
It's worse than the Yankees losing the 3-0 lead.
Yeah. On another
Right.
hockey note, though, the Kraken moved on. They went to 7 in their first playoff series, and they've advanced to the second round. So congratulations to all the Seattle fans out there.
Yeah, shout out to Dustin Potter, if you guys remember him from college.
Depot. Yeah.
I think his family owns the team or something
I'm
like
a little-
that.
Yeah, I'm a little Depot. Short and not stout.
Yeah. All right. Any last Nick, Mexico City. I caught the game yesterday. That was fun.
Yeah, it was dope.
Good for baseball.
First game was ridiculous with all those home runs. I mean, all you had to do is literally just flick your bat out there and the ball would just fly 500 feet.
Yeah. Can I say one thing though? Because I've been
Soto
watching.
hit one. Tatis hit one. That's good to see those guys
So,
doing their thing.
Soto, Tatis, Machado, and Bogarts all hit one in the same game.
And Cruz.
And Cruz. But like the
Did
big four.
Cronenworth hit one in that game too?
No. But Manny had 2 in that game.
Needed.
And his were no doubters. Like his were home runs in other ballparks too. One of them. at least.
I've been, since you mentioned that you guys have been worried about Soto's swing, I've been trying to watch it. It is gross.
Yeah.
What's with the one knee thing?
He's like pulling off a lot too, and like
Pulling off, like
Yeah.
he's so cocked back. Like Manny like
Weird,
goes
right?
and like it's so like Manny, if you watch Manny swing, Arenado really does it. But a lot of these guys, like they're patient, but they'll go meet the ball.
right.
And Soto is like so cocked back that he's swinging from his back. Like it's all his weight is everything on his back leg. And he's like, and he's so low that he's falling to his knee and like trying to like one knee it. It's like so
Yeah.
bizarre.
I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. I think at the end of the day, like I was telling my girlfriend Britt, like I really think it's a strong possibility that Ohtani's gonna be a Padre by the end of the season, because I think the number one need for us is a starting pitcher. And he is lights out right now. And you go out and trade him. And if you really want to bring him in, right, in free agency, don't even let him test the free agent market. You start negotiating with him as soon as he gets to your team for trade deadline. You give him all the prospects to the Angels, whatever, goodbye. And then you start negotiating, you lock him up, and then you have Soto for one more season. And if you want to trade him, or you want to trade him to the Angels, or just want to let him walk, that's up to you. But I think Ohtani is the clear-cut guy now between the two
You
of
got to
them.
trade. You have it like, remember when they traded Soriano for A-Rod? Like you could do, you guys still have Robert Hassel?
Nope, Nationals. But we have Jackson Merrill, he's a great prospect for us as well. Who's a shortstop. We have like 20 shortstops. So
Yeah.
Quickly, just throw this out there. Rays check 3-3 in their last 6. So
Bad loss. to the
May,
White Sox.
and now May is
Hey.
May is truly started.
Yankees are in
prediction
last
coming to
place,
fruition.
baby. Yankees are in last place.
Yeah,
Go Sox.
gentlemen
Look-
sweep. Texas Rangers gentlemen sweep the New York Yankees. It's a good feeling.
Beautiful. Thank you.
It's
They
good feeling.
crushed them. All right, guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Later. Hook 'em horns.